Hello everybody, can you hear me all right? Fantastic. All right, last session of the day. So this session stands between you and some networking, or maybe a few glasses of vino or something along those lines. So this next session is, we're going to go into private networks. But first of all, could I just ask everybody to take a look up at the screen? Mastercard have got a fantastic demo up in their office. Please do sign up and go and see it. It's got some great tools that they're using to prevent fraud and increase cybersecurity. So that's an experience which you can take advantage of. Please put your name down. There'll be visits up there all day tomorrow for you to be able to see all of that technology in play. So the final session of today is going to be focusing on private networks. Private networks are obviously becoming more and more a key topic within the industry. In the GSMA ourselves, Joe over there leads our Digital Industries group, which looks at manufacturing, and they've just published their latest report on it. So I probably could suggest taking a look at that if you've got a spare 5 minutes this evening. But really what we want to do within this session is start to explore what the cybersecurity fundamentals are of those private networks. We're seeing them be used around factories, we're seeing them used in hotels, we're seeing them used in airports. And these private networks are springing up everywhere. And we're seeing regulators who are giving spectrum around to those parties to enable them to create mobile-enabled private networks that can integrate in all sorts of scenarios. So I'd like to welcome on stage Fortinet, Ronen from Fortinet, who's going to take us through a session where we'll explore the fundamentals of the private network in a 5G environment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for your bravery, staying so late. So I'm responsible for the solution marketing, targeting the telecom market for Fortinet. And I'm going to try and talk about cybersecurity fundamentals in a private 5G environment. So first of all, Moses did not come down from the mountain with 10 commandments or 10 fundamental cybersecurity commandments, right? So it's very difficult to talk about something that is applicable to every private 5G. And if you'll notice, I'm talking about environments. I'm not talking about private 5G. I'm not talking about cybersecurity in private 5G or for private 5G. I'm talking about private 5G environments. So what I'll try to do is I'll try to bring in some of the telecom and enterprise aspects so we can bring them together and understand what are some of the security considerations and fundamental that are required in these environments. So first of all, why private 5G? So a report by the European Court of Auditors that was last year looking at 2021, or the investment that was done until 2021, estimated something around 400 billion euros investment in 5G. That's including everything across the European Union, right? In Mobile World Congress earlier this year, I heard a different number, which was 600 billion euros. Now, this is more than 1,000 times higher than my annual salary. That's huge, right? So, of course, you would expect with all this investment, you would expect return on investment. But what we've seen is that the return on investment doesn't happen, right? We don't have that return on investment. So we have this need from an operator perspective, from a telecom perspective, to try and get that return on investment for that huge amount of investment that was done. And really the way going forward, we all agree, is enterprises, right? And this is just one of the many, many estimates. This is from Omdia 2022. It's just an example where all the analysts are saying, well, the growth, the revenue, the return on investment is going to come, unlike previous mobile generations, going to come from enterprises, right? So in order to understand anything about cybersecurity in or for this market, we need to understand the enterprise, right? So the customer here is the enterprise. It's not public 5G, it's not the consumer, it's the enterprise. So we have to think differently, we have to talk differently, okay? We have to execute differently. Now, within that enterprise opportunity, private 5G is a major opportunity. It's the first real opportunity that we're seeing where the investment that was done in 5G technology can actually bring the growth in the revenue that we're looking for. This is a very recent research that was done by SNS Telecom and IT. In fact, this month, it was released this month, right? And this is, by the way, this is a very conservative estimate, right? There are other analysts that are talking about numbers which are much, much higher. But here we're talking about, the private cellular network, LTE 5G, and we're talking about something like in 2026, over $6 billion of revenue generated from private 5G. Private cellular. And what we're seeing is, that the share of private 5G by space is growing much faster than LTE. Now, what we need to understand is why. Why enterprises are looking to invest in private cellular, right? And really, I like this term of metaverse. And I like the term metaverse because it means everything and nothing. You can put everything into that term, which is called metaverse. But for me, a metaverse is something that is always changing, always expanding. It's not something which is fixed, but it's all about how do I actually enable every organization to augment itself into a digital world. Okay? How to allow digital technology to augment every aspect of an enterprise, regardless what type of enterprise it is, which vertical it relates to, and so on and so forth, right? That's the metaverse, and it includes different type of technologies, different type of tools, different type of applications, and so on and so forth. And here we have some examples. And when we look at this idea of metaverse, we can divide it into three main groups: consumers, enterprises in general, and then industrial enterprises, right? And what we're seeing from forecast is that the industrial metaverse, the industrial use of cellular technology and private cellular technology is the one that is being adopted in the fastest way, and it's the fastest growing one, okay? And I still kept consumer metaverse, although consumers are not using private 5G, but because eventually to provide that consumer metaverse, it's going to be enterprises, industrial enterprises who are going to provide that consumer metaverse. So the consumer metaverse is part of that overall ecosystem. So this is what enterprises and industrial enterprises are trying to achieve. And this is why they want to invest in private cellular. This is why they want to invest in private 5G. So what they're trying to achieve with private 5G, with private cellular? What is the role of private 5G in achieving that metaverse, in going through that ever-ending process of that metaverse? So first of all, we need to understand that when we bring in 5G, we don't bring it into a virgin environment, right? These enterprises are going through their digital transformation and moving towards that metaverse promise with or without 5G or LTE, right? And they're using different type of technologies to do it. So they're using local area networks, they're using Wi-Fi, they're using wide area network technologies, they're using AI, they're using million different type of technology. And I haven't outlined all of them because I'm talking about networking technologies. 5G is a networking technology. LTE is a networking technology. Okay? So the question is, let's introduce cellular, private and public, and ask ourselves the question, is that it? So now when I've completed that cake with private cellular and public cellular, so a hybrid environment, for example, did I enable those enterprises to go towards the metaverse? Well, I think that we understand that the answer is no, and I would like to quote the head of networking planning at Volkswagen, which I think outlined it very well earlier this year, saying that 5G is just a piece of the puzzle. This is just another technology. And even he says a small technology to connect to something bigger. Okay? 5G is an enabler. But actually putting in 5G, public or private or hybrid, has very little value. 5G for the sake of 5G is worthless. I'll be bold, maybe go to the extreme. It's worthless. So what we need to understand when we want to talk about cybersecurity in these environments, we need to understand, so what else do we need? So first of all, let's understand the environment that we're talking about, the enterprise. Now, there are different enterprises, there are different verticals, and with each vertical, there are different enterprises. Now, they differ in the assets that they have, in the processes that they have, in the use cases that they want to achieve, in their regulation requirements that they have to achieve, and so on and so forth, right? So each one of these, whether it's a consumer, entertainment, transportation, manufacturing, is a different beast. And within these beasts, you would have different examples. So the first thing is that I take from this is there isn't one solution, there isn't one thing, there isn't one typical customer that I can say this is the prototype of everything which has to do around private 5G. It will differ, okay? And we need to be aware of that. And then we want to apply 5G in its different guises to whatever we have today, these enterprises, Wi-Fi, WAN, Ethernet, and so on and so forth, right? And here we have a mix. And I'm saying that we have a mix because I do not believe that private 5G alone will help us to get to that metaverse. I believe that it's going to be a hybrid environment that will allow us to get to that promise, that metaverse, right? So we're talking about private cellular combined with public cellular and combined with other technologies, right? And this can be applied to all of them. But this is just a connectivity technology. This is just a pipe. Maybe it's not a dumb pipe, right? Maybe it's very intelligent, it's very smart, it's customizable, it provides a lot of great capabilities that are very difficult to achieve today, or maybe sometimes impossible to achieve today, right? But it is a connectivity, it is a networking technology, no more, no less. What you have to do is, you have to provide something else. And that something else is divided into two things. One is compute. We refer to it as edge. What I want to make clear is that edge is not limited to something that is physically within the customer enterprises, right? A public cloud can be an edge, a compute edge, right? The edge environment is that environment that will allow me to create the platforms, different service platforms that I would require to achieve my end goal, to achieve my use cases. Okay? And I would need different types of edges based on what I want to achieve. For example, if I want to achieve something which requires very low latency, maybe I would want to have that edge located near as possible to the different devices, different processes and assets that I have in place. But maybe some of these objectives of these use cases don't require that. So maybe I can locate them in a further away edge or maybe in the public cloud, right? So we have all different types and sorts of edges with different requirements, with different considerations, with different limitations and so on and so forth. But that's even not enough, because on top of that, what enterprise want to do is to create value ecosystems. And we heard that word ecosystem repeatedly today, and I think it's very, very important. But here the key is value ecosystem. So value ecosystem is where the value lies, right? These assets and processes need to actually talk to, get information from, be directed from, live upon the value that is provided by that value ecosystem. And here we're talking about applications, about tools, about AI, about machine learning, all these technologies and capabilities that are there to provide the value, to provide that use case that I want to achieve. If I want to achieve, smart transportation, for example, right? I might need, a connected car or a connected bus, right? I would probably need 5G and Wi-Fi, a mix of 5G and Wi-Fi, to be able to talk to somewhere a compute edge, which can be local, because I would need context information that is relevant to this region, and maybe I need low latency type of connectivity. But in that edge, I would need specific solutions, specific tools that are tailored for making that smart transportation possible. So this is everything that we need to look at when we're talking about private 5G environments or private cellular environments. If I only look at fixed or at that networking level, private LTE or private 5G, I'm a utility provider, right? I provide a pipe, right? And there are enterprises, service providers that this is their offering today, and it's legit, right? They come to the customer and say, there you have a rack, that's your private 5G network, have fun, okay? The value is very, very little. So you made a sale, and that's it, right? And so the value is very, 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 very low. It's like a utility, okay? And enterprises don't know 5G. They don't even understand what they can do with 5G, many of them. They have ideas, but they don't know the technology. They don't understand what it brings, what it doesn't bring, what it's capable of doing, what it's not capable of doing, what are some of the risks associated with it, how does it impact what I'm doing today, does it impact anything that I'm doing today, and so on and so forth, right? So just putting a rack there doesn't provide any value, right? But if, as a service provider, as an operator, as a system integrator, you can actually provide everything. And by saying provide everything doesn't mean that you have to have your own infrastructure of edge, although it would be advisable, or you have a complete value ecosystem and applications and tools that come from you. It means that you need to be aware of that stack, complete stack. You need to be able to allow the enterprise or facilitate the enterprise ability to actually build that stack. Some of it can be yours, right? We know that a lot of operators are, for example, investing in building compute edge everywhere in the country. Some of them are actually building value ecosystem with different tools, different application integrations to provide that additional value that is required for different verticals, right? But regardless of what you're providing, what you're taking from others, what the enterprise is bringing, what other technology partners are bringing to that, you need to look at that overall stack. Because when you do that, when you accompany your enterprise, and this is what the enterprise wants, they want somebody to tell them, guys, this is how 5G can help you. Okay? This is what you need to build, right? From an edge perspective, from an application perspective. These are some of the considerations that you have to put in place. We can help you do that and that and that, right? This is what they're looking for. This is the real value. And when you have that, then you are a value add provider. You are a business enabler for that enterprise. So this is a fundamental difference between providing private 5G, here's a rack, and looking at the overall stack, looking at the overall ecosystem. And enterprises understand that they need that, and they're not waiting for you or anybody else, right? They need somebody to help them with it, but they're not standing there. They're not waiting for the incumbent or the operator to come and offer that capability. So this is a survey from Gartner, right? 2023, very recent. So in the next 2 to 3 years, almost 70% are going to invest, deploy, execute on edge computing. It's happening, right? So with you, without you, they're going to do it. They are doing it. So, of course, this is not daydreaming. This is not going to happen, I don't know, with the sixth generation of mobile networking. This is happening today, and you need to be on board of that. And that shows you the importance that enterprises see in delivering more than just a cellular network. And that edge environment is extremely complex. Right? The idea behind edge, again, and this is a quote from T-Mobile US, is not to create or try to avoid to create a cookie cutter approach, right? I have one edge with a single set of capabilities and that's it. I'm going to create it everywhere and I'm going to offer it to all of my customers, to all of the verticals. And this is what you get, that's it. No, the idea behind it is that, again, every vertical is different. They would need different things. They would need different requirements. So we're going to see not only different types of edges spread around the country, we're actually going to see edges that are built for multi-platforms, right? And these platforms are mostly going to be hyperscaler platforms, right? So the AWSs, the Azures, the Google Cloud, that's their role. This is where they play. And the reason for that, and the reason why operators and enterprises are adopting them in an edge environment is because application developers love them. This is where they used to develop. They know their tools. They know their capabilities. So in order to attract application developers to develop that value ecosystem on top of the edge, this is what is requirement. But this is a very complex environment, right? So what we are doing by actually looking at that overall stack and the different complexity that is adding, we are enabling more. We are driving use cases for private 5G and private LTE environments, but we're also increasing complexity, right? We're tremendously increasing complexity. And complexity is the enemy of security, right? One of the things that always amazes me is that I've been with Fortinet for 7 years now. And before that, I was with Cisco, with Nortel, and security was always the number one challenge, barrier, whatever you want to call it. And we have the solutions. We have the technology. We have the solutions to deal with it. So why is it always the number one? And I think that, and we heard that, I think from Vodafone presentation, talking about that an enterprise would have an average over 70 type of security vendors or security solutions in their network. Some of them they're not even aware that they have. That's the core of the network. That's the core of the problem. It's that complexity. And what we're doing now with private 5G, with the entire stack, with the edge, with the value ecosystem, we are adding complexity. They know that they add complexity. So they're at lost. Not only already today, I am completely lost with cybersecurity. Now I know that I want and probably need to deploy that 5G, that stack, but it's going to add more. How is it going to impact? How do I going to deal with it, right? So again, being able to accompany the enterprise and deal with that cybersecurity complexity is a key differentiator and a key enabler for service providers. And cybersecurity and enterprises are saying that is critical for them to adopt 5G. And here you have different numbers from different years, from 2020 to 2022, from GSMA, from SDL partners, from Verizon. But they're all saying, enterprises are saying, we need 5G to be secure. We need 5G to be secure. And when they say we need 5G to be secure, they're talking about the overall stack, right? Not just the private 5G network, the overall stack. We need security, right? So in order to be successful, security has to be part of your language, your offering, when you're talking about private 5G, when you're talking about enabling and empowering your customers with private 5G. And in theory, telcos understand that. the last one from GSMA Intelligence, right? 85% of telcos say that their number one operational priority to maintain revenue growth with their enterprise customers is invest in security. By far, 85%. It's very easy to respond to a survey and actually go and do it because it's very complex. But I think that there is this understanding from telecoms that in order to maintain the growth and the trust that they have with their enterprise customers, in order to drive growth from 5G, they need to invest in cybersecurity, not only in private, but also in public. And of course, cybersecurity is becoming less of an option. 2 reasons, I would say 3 reasons for that. First of all, the criticality of 5G, whether it's public or private, is on the rise with different use cases, with different capabilities. So of course, threat actors are going to pay more attention, right? And now with 5G, we're going away from weird protocols and interfaces to standard IP protocols, right? Standard API interfaces, right? Everything is API and so on and so forth. Threat actors know that. They love that, right? Easy for them. The second one is that we are seeing telecoms being hit. And this is something which you need to pay attention to. If I want to attack your private or public 5G network, I don't have to directly go and attack your network. I can go somewhere else. Penetrate somewhere else, which maybe it's less secure, or you haven't paid attention to. I can go and look at your enterprise network, right? Every telco is an enterprise, right? I can, through that, maybe reach the management, administration, and orchestration layers upon which you provide and manage your private 5G network to your customers. And from there, I can go and infiltrate and maybe attack your private 5G network or that stack as a whole. So again, when thinking about cybersecurity, don't think about, okay, how to protect my private 5G network? No, how do I protect the entire stack, the entire operation for my customers? And then regulations. So whether like it or not, regulators understood that 5G in its different guise, private, public, is not, it's too serious, too critical to let operators deal with from a cybersecurity perspective. So they are forcing enterprises and they're forcing you to do something about it. So I think the UK is very advanced with the TSA. They've been doing that now for I think, what, 2 years. But we have NIS2, for example, coming now with the European Union. And there are other instances, right? So really, cybersecurity is no longer optional. You have to invest. You need to be aware of that. So if you go back to this, and this is where I start to talk about, finally, about cybersecurity, this stack, this layer. Now, each one of these stack components is expanding the attack surface. It's adding attack vectors, right? So for example, when I provide private 5G, right? Private 5G, I haven't seen, it's very rare that you have an isolated private 5G. Private 5G is always connected to the enterprise network, connected to an edge, which is not always located on site. And even when it's located on site, you have third parties access. So, you would have exposure points, API exposure points, connectivity exposure points, right? The 5G network, a private network, is less scalable than a public one, so it's vulnerable to signaling storm, DDoS attacks that will happen within that enterprise. So first of all, you have that type of, and I just mentioned several of them, vulnerability and attack surface. The compute edge, right? As I mentioned, it's a very complex environment, right? Multi-platform. How do you secure that environment? Where lies the responsibility of securing that environment? Do we need to have a shared responsibility model in this environment, like we have in the public cloud? Who's responsible for what, right? If I have AWS and Azure and Google, who's responsible for what? It's my edge, right? Who's doing what? How do I manage that? How do I orchestrate that through a network that can have tens, hundreds, thousands of edges around the country? And then the value ecosystem is going to be a multi-tenant environment, right? I'm going to have different partners different application vendors, different tools. They need to be integrated, right? They need to be separated. I don't want lateral movements, right? I want privacy, right? How do I deal with that? So all these components add and expand the attack surface, they add complexity, they add attack vectors. And when enterprises see that, they're lost. When they actually get to see that, when somebody is honest enough to come and talk to them and say, guys, you need to pay attention to this, right? And of course, there are solutions, right? There are solutions for all of these challenges. What unites them, I think, is that philosophy, which is zero trust. The zero trust philosophy says, I trust no one, I don't trust my devices, I don't trust my vendors, I don't trust my partners, I don't trust my employees, I don't trust any network that I connect to, I don't trust anything or anyone. Okay? And what do I do then? What do I deploy? How do I make that happen from a maybe philosophical point of view into reality, right? And how do I do that in a way that doesn't increase even more the complexity? Okay? How do I make it in a way that is humanly possible or technology possible to manage, to orchestrate, to automate? So if for the more techies of us, if I try and break these layers into a private 5G network, and here at the antenna, the radio access network, I've put in Open RAN because we know that many of the private 5G providers are actually using Open RAN technology to provide the RAN in that environment. Then we have this architecture, and we have all these different attack vectors around this environment, which outlines the stack, right? The RAN, the core, the user plane, the control plane, the edge, connectivity to external PDNs, applications, multi-tenancy, the management, administration, and orchestration. Okay? But we have the solutions, right? And again, think about everything. It doesn't mean that when you're coming to an enterprise customer, you have to shock and frighten them to say, ooh, my God, so many things will go bad, and you have to spend now another $2 million to secure everything. No, that's not the idea. The idea is to be able to understand what your customer is doing, what they're trying to achieve, what is the stack that they require, what are the capabilities and the tools that they have in each one of the stack layers, what are the threats, right, specific to what they're trying to achieve today, and what do I do in order to mitigate these threats. And tomorrow, when there's a new use case for that customer, right, how do I take what I already put in place and use it for that new use case, if I can, right? That's the idea. Not either you buy everything or you die. This is what you're trying to achieve. This is what you need, okay? And having that trusted relationship with your enterprise customer, for him to understand, they understand me, they know what I'm trying to achieve, and they are building the security fundamentals that will allow me to evolve while still being secure. So, another very important question that has to be asked is, what is or is there an impact when we introduce private cellular, when we introduce private 5G in an existing environment that is 100% of the cases, because even when an enterprise builds a whole next generation factory, which should run on 5G, you still have Ethernet, you still have Wi-Fi, you will have 5G, but there are always some sort of, and you would have other technologies, right? You would have operational technology, you would have other type of technologies in there. So by actually introducing private cellular, do I break something that already exists? Do I change something that already exists? Okay? Do I need to pay attention to what is already there, or can I say, I don't care what's there. This is what they're trying to achieve. This is what they need to do. I'm going to secure that. Well, the answer is, you better understand what they have in place and what you're doing may impact that. And I will give you one example, which I think is the most important one. As we've seen, the biggest adopters of private cellular are industrial companies, mining, manufacturing, transportation, logistics, right? And these guys use operational technology. Right? They all use operational technology. This is the most critical technology that they use. This is the juice upon which their manufacturing, their operation is running on. This must not fail. And we've seen, I think the 5G, ACIA, the 5G ACIA speaker mentioned about the physically separated environments, right? The open, the air gap environments, where because it is so critical, we're not connecting to anything, right? We're shutting the door, there's no lock, nobody can get in, right? But this is going away. Everything now is being connected. And when you look at different verticals that use operational technology, mining, energy, utilities, manufacturing, just to name a few, they're all based on that technology. Now, that technology is based on, well, securing this environment is based on what is known as a Purdue model, right? Now, every vertical that uses OT would have different regulations that they have to meet from a cybersecurity perspective for that specific environment, the OT environment. But they're more or less all of them based on the same Purdue model, the same concept. And that concept says that OT environment, that production environment, for example, is divided into layers, into zones, okay? And between the zones, I have boundary, security boundary, okay? And this is where I deploy security. This is where I have visibility on what's happening, and this is where I enforce cybersecurity. Okay? Now what we're seeing, this is the OT, the red part, OT environment. So we have the safety zone, process control, operation control, and then that air gap is going away, and we have this famous OT-IT convergence. So the OT environment, the production environment, is now connected to the IT environment to be more efficient, right? To do cost savings, and so on and so forth, right? For Industry 4.0, enable new capabilities. The air gap is going away, right? So everything is connected to everything, right? So this is what is happening today. And you have security, for example, Fortinet provides security in all these boundaries, right? This is a very specific security, right? It's OT-aware security. These guys use weird protocols, right? Weird processes that they have to comply with and control. Now, the reason that it works is there is one data path. A process at level 0 cannot talk to an engineering workstation in level 3 without going through a boundary. Not allowed. Right? So there is a very, very hierarchical data path. And that works perfectly. Now let's introduce 5G. We introduce 5G or LTE, private, and in many cases we'll do the edge. And of course, what you want to do is you want to have devices, you want to have things, industrial IoT connected to that environment. So suddenly, you have multiple data paths. So now, a process can talk directly to an engineering workstation, or even to an edge application, or even to a partner in the cloud without going through a boundary, a security boundary. You've broken the Purdue model security. You are non-compliant, right? Now, that means that, first of all, you need to be aware of that. It means that your customers need to be aware of that, okay? And what it means is that you have to deploy a boundary, an OT boundary within your private 5G network, so that everything that goes through the private 5G network is still compliant to the Purdue model. all the weird protocols and processes and procedures and everything are still looked at, analyzed, and enforced within the private 5G network that you're offering. So there is an impact of introducing private 5G in certain environments, probably in most environments, that you have to take into account. So my last slide. So if you go back to this stack, so what are the fundamentals? So the first one is understand the customer. Don't go and sell, there you go, the rack with private 5G, I'll sell you SIM cards, your own SIM cards, and go ahead and play with it, right? That, everybody can do it. System integrators can do it. 5G providers can do it. Other than you, equipment vendors can do it. Hyperscalers can do it, right? What's the value, right? Understand the enterprise, understand its environment, understand its working, its constraints, understand its objectives. What are you trying to achieve? Last week, there was another event in the UK, in London, talking about private 5G and edge environment. And there was an operator, a UK operator, on stage, talking about some of their private 5G network use cases, what they've done, right? And one of the examples was they installed private 5G in a hospital to cover 3 use cases. None of the 3 use cases required 5G. None. Private 5G. They could all have been done with Ethernet or Wi-Fi. Connected refrigerators, right? It's one of the use cases. Why? Why? Right? So I understand there is this, this is a hot topic. Everybody wants to sell private 5G. Enterprises want to deploy private 5G. But be sensible. What are you trying to achieve? Why? 5G is not a silver bullet, right? Maybe you can do it in other ways. So understand your customer, understand its environment, understand where he wants to go. Not in 2,000 years, but what is the next operational strategic objective that you have for the next 2-3 years? Does 5G help you? Do you need 5G, private 5G, or public 5G, or hybrid to do it? You need edge. What type of edge? Okay. What are the tools and the application and the overall ecosystem that you would require? Do you thinking about? Do you have something already in mind? Do you need our help? What exposure do you have to partners, to external networks, API exposure, and so on and so forth? Understand that, and then come to them and say, okay, yes, we think that this is why you need private 5G. This is the environment that you would run. And these are the security implications that you have to take into consideration. And we can help you achieve that so you can continue to be compliant. So first of all is build that cybersecurity platform. Okay? And when I'm saying platform, I mean something that is customizable. Ooh, that's one of the difficult words in English. Customizable, yet can be duplicated. So flexible enough to say, I build it more or less once. I build the capabilities. I build the platform itself, its integration, its management, its reporting, its capabilities. Okay, but then I can customize it for every different industry, every different vertical, every different use case. And that would include different type of capabilities, and doing so without adding complexity. Well, mister, you have 17 different security devices in your network. Well, we're going to add another 100, but it will be secured, right? That doesn't work, right? So how do you allow it to achieve all of that, to build that platform, to implement that platform while adding very little security, and even be braver to say, I can also use that platform to actually replace some of what you're doing today, the complexity that you have today. You show more trust, you show more value, and you generate more revenue. Okay, so it's a way to penetrate into the organization as a whole, right? Services, right? When you are providing that 5G network and whatever other components, right? What are the cybersecurity services that you can deliver on top of that cybersecurity platform, right? So the platform needs to be able to provide services, value-added services, revenue-generating services, right? That go beyond what I need as basic needs for this environment, right? So it can be managed security services, again, what I mentioned. How do I replace some of the complexity that we already have in place, okay? How do I provide you a different way, a secure way to access your partners, your wide area network environment, and so on and so forth. And that will create it again. You're different. You understand the customer. You show them value. You show them, I'm thinking ahead of you, right? I'm trying to help you in ways that you don't think about. And SOC is very important, SOC services, right? You need to be able to enable your customer to understand with everything they deploy, with everything that they're consuming in that overall stack, in that environment, okay? So how do I mitigate if something does go wrong? How do I report? How do I benchmark compliance? How do I know that I am compliant, right? How do I create playbooks? We showed, playbooks here. How do I create playbooks, right? If something does go wrong, right? This is extremely critical, right? I cannot have somebody clicking on things to make things happen. Everything needs to be automated, right? How do I deploy AI, machine learning? So SOC services is very important. And again, the idea here is not to create something which is specifically unique for a customer, but something that can expand multiple customers, multiple industry, and yet be customizable for each use case, for each vertical, and doing it in a modular way. Today, this is the use case that you need. This is your stack. This is the attack surface. This is what you need to secure. Tomorrow, you're going to do something else. Is that enough? Great. Are you secured? Good. If not, do you need to add more capabilities, other type of services? That has to happen not by adding more products, more solution, more platform, more orchestration, more management, more screens. It has to be enabled by the same platform, right? So modular, broad, cover everything, integrated, converged, and automated. Have different components do much more than existing components today. And this is really what is behind what we at Fortinet call the Fortinet Security Fabric, that overall mass security platform that allows you to do exactly that, okay? So hopefully, I gave you maybe a bit of a different approach to looking at security consideration of fundamentals in private 5G networks. Anyway, if you have any question you would like to discuss, we're here today and tomorrow, and thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Ronen. That brings us to the end of today. First of all, just got a few announcements. I want to thank our sponsors for being able to enable us to support this event and hopefully deliver this content. It's been fantastic. And of course, you guys for coming along as well. We now have networking taking place outside, so please do join us for a drink of some description and then take the time to have a look at some of the stands which we've got out there. We've got Fortinet, we've got MasterCard. That's come all the way from Frankfurt, as we heard earlier, so let's make it worthwhile. And a number of others, including the GSMA Foundry. Tomorrow, we've also, don't forget your opportunity to go and do the MasterCard experience. So again, just another plug for that, so please do sign up. We've got a fantastic agenda happening tomorrow covering all kinds of topics, eSIM, IoT, identity and the use of operator data, and even drones. But I'm particularly excited about our keynote tomorrow, so please do make an effort to try and be here for 10 o'clock. I think it's a really unique way of demonstrating how connectivity is enabling a new way of thinking around motorsport. I'm really pleased to say that we have the managing director and CTO from Extreme E. Extreme E is a off-road racing series which has spun out of Formula E. And they're going to be demonstrating how and talking about how they use connectivity and mobile technology to not only enhance the racing and the unique way that they deliver that racing, the broadcast platform, so they haven't got major film crews coming along to do it, as you may see at some of the other kind of events. They've got a new way of doing that using connectivity. Enhanced security, so effectively the safety, so effectively the emergency communities are always connected and always know what's going on. And they have a number of environmental objectives, and it's very much focused on sustainability. So it's really a unique concept, and it's really a unique way of looking at how connectivity is enabling all of that. And I think I've got a short video that should hopefully whet your appetite for what is to come.
Spheres and excited racing with the future of our planet at its heart. This is the greatest adventure of our time. This is Extreme.
So yeah, a little sneak peek into tomorrow. Hopefully you will, that will whet your appetite for what should be a good session for 10 o'clock. Cheers, bye-bye.